Rasmussen here. In this lesson, we're going to talk about blood. We've been looking at the circulatory system, so we talked about the anatomy of the heart, we've been talking about what blood vessels are like, and so in this lesson we're just going to talk about blood. The components of it, what its functions are, what it does, what it's made of, what it carries, stuff like that. So this is blood. First I want to talk about the functions, and one of them is going to be a duh. The first one you guys know. You know that blood transports dissolved gases, so like oxygen and carbon dioxide. You know that blood transports waste that we want to get rid of. You know that blood transports glucose. And, you know, by now you probably know that blood transports hormones. So we know that blood moves stuff in our body. That's the first function. So things like a glucose molecule over here, and oxygen and carbon dioxide. This one we're totally confident on. I wouldn't study this if I were you, because you know that blood transports stuff. Second thing the blood does though, is the other ones are kind of odd. The first one, or the next one, is it maintains the body temperature. So your body has this amazing ability to move blood around to maintain body temperature. And a good example of this is when you're really cold. So what happens when you're really cold is your body actually moves blood away from your arms and feet. And the reason is because your extremities, these arms, these feet, these fingers, have lots of surface area. Lots of surface area in relation to their volume, which means more heat is lost. So the more that the blood is out here in the extremities when you're cold, the more heat that's going to be lost to the outside environment. So your body is smart. And what it does is it takes that blood and it pulls it out of your arms and legs and puts it into the core of your body, into your chest region, right by where all those vital organs are. And it does that to make sure that those vital organs stay at the exact right temperature. Pretty fascinating that your body can move blood around in order to maintain its temperature. Another thing blood does is it defends against disease and toxins. It contains white blood cells, part of your immune system, that are going to defend against stuff here. This is, as you can see, this picture is kind of gross, but it's a bunch of bacteria growing on an agar plate. The other thing it does is it limits blood loss. So for instance, if we fell down, if we're on your longboard and you fall down and you scrape your hand like this, which is probably fairly common for those of you longboarders, it's going to limit the amount of blood that you lose. So your blood has components in it to make sure that you don't completely leak out onto the sidewalk and pass away at that moment. So it's going to limit the blood loss. And the last and final thing it does is it's going to regulate pH. Your blood has to stay at this exact pH. And right down here, 7.365 is this ideal blood pH. And your body wants to stay right there. Well, you're constantly making acid, and you're constantly exposing your body to different acids. So this blood pH can change drastically. So your body wants to spread it out and get rid of it and use the blood to sort of regulate or buffer that pH to make sure it doesn't get too high or too low. It's really crucial. If it gets up 0.1 or 0.2 higher, you're looking at coma or death. So your body has to be really good at this. Okay, if we look at the composition, what's your blood made out of? And we see a nifty little chart here, so I'm rooting the surprise. But if we look at that, composition is plasma. About 55% of your blood is the fluid that surrounds the cells, and those are called plasma. So about 55. Over half of your blood is plasma. And then for the most part, we have the other part, the other 45, is divided up between these erythrocytes, or red blood cells, leukocytes, or white blood cells, thrombocytes, or platelets. So those are the other ones. So less than half are blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. All right, we're going to take each of these components one at a time. So we're going to look at each of these different components. So the first one we're going to start with is plasma. If we take your blood and we put it in a centrifuge, which spins it at really high speeds, we're going to do this. We're going to separate out the cells because they're heavy. They'll get sucked to the bottom. But the plasma, which is light, will float here at the top, and it looks kind of this straw colored. And when we do that, we notice that plasma is about 55% of your blood. Well, plasma is made up of a bunch of different stuff. So it's not just one fluid called plasma, but it's made up of a bunch of other little things. A large component of it, 7% of it, is protein. And there's a bunch of different types of proteins. These are coagulant proteins, or albumin proteins, lots of different types of proteins. But for the main part, a big component of plasma is proteins. Another component, and a very small component, is the things that are dissolved in it. Electrolytes, salts, sodium chloride, potassium chloride, electrolytes that are dissolved, they're a very small component, as well as dissolved sugar and stuff like that. And then the largest component is water. So 92%. I'm not sure why water is over here, and that's a typo. It shouldn't be over here, so I'll get rid of that here. But the largest component, 92% of your plasma is water. Large component protein, very little dissolved stuff in there as far as the composition goes. So much less than we would originally think. Okay, if we look at a red blood cell, so that's what we're moving on to next, we call those erythrocytes. And they are this bio-concave disc, so they're a living concave disc. Okay, but they're an interesting cell. They are really highly specialized to carry oxygen. So they're really specialized to do their job, and because of that, a lot of the stuff on the inside of them is not like other cells. They have a lot of their components removed, so because of that, they can carry more oxygen. For instance, they don't have a nucleus. They have no nucleus, no DNA. They have to come from stem cells. Once again, that's found in the red bone marrow, if you remember from the bone lesson. And then we got ribosomes over here, so they don't have any ribosomes. They can't make proteins. And they also have, and they don't have any mitochondria. They get most of their energy from their surroundings here. So they don't have mitochondria to turn the glucose into energy for them. So they lack a lot of stuff, but that leaves a lot of room for them to have this molecule in them called hemoglobin. So they want to pack their bodies full of hemoglobin. And hemoglobin is this interesting molecule down here. And it has 4 subunits, so we can count them here, and they made them different colors for us. So there's a yellow, green, purple, and I guess purple-orange. And these are different. There's beta chains and there's alpha chains. And there's hemoglobin. So there's 4 subunits, and each of these subunits, they have these little circles here, they have a heme molecule. And this heme molecule is what actually carries the oxygen for us. So these heme molecules carry oxygen, they carry carbon dioxide, and there's one spot for oxygen per each heme molecule. So each hemoglobin can carry 4 oxygen molecules or 4 carbon dioxide molecules. So blood cells are lacking a lot of stuff, but they have a lot of room for hemoglobin so that they're really efficient oxygen or carbon dioxide carriers. Okay, the next one is a leukocyte. The leukocytes are our white blood cells, and they actually fall into 2 big categories, and we're not going to go into a lot of detail on all of them. But one category is we have a type of immunity called non-specific immunity. This type of immunity attacks everything. So it doesn't matter what it is that gets into you, so long as it doesn't have a self-marker on it, it's going to attack it. And these are things like neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, and monocytes. These are all types of non-specific. So they're going to attack invaders not depending upon what the invaders are. But we also have a type of immunity or a type of leukocyte called specific immunity, and these are very specific to the disease or to the bacteria. These are the type that are going to produce antibodies and produce a response to very specific diseases. These are the reasons why you can't get chickenpox again, because you built up a specific immunity to chickenpox if you've had it once. And then we call these lymphocytes, and they're mainly of 2 varieties. They're mainly of the B lymphocytes and the T lymphocytes. So those are our specific immunity lymphocytes. The last component of blood that I need you to know about are these thrombocytes, and thrombocytes are our platelets. Platelets. They do a couple of things. One, they carry chemicals for us. They have lots of chemicals in them, and these chemicals' job are mainly to promote clotting. So they're gonna carry chemicals that promote our blood to clot, and they're gonna release these chemicals when we need to clot. And they're also gonna form patches. So I think this is just a really fantastic diagram here of clot formed around this blood vessel, forming a patch around it. And then over here, so we have blood clots over here. They're also going to do this thing called contract, and I'll get to that in a second. So as you have a rupture in your blood vessel, these cells are going to coagulate around it along with these platelets, and they're going to form a clot. The platelets become activated. So we see these activated platelets down here, and they form a clot. And they have all this molecule that holds it together called fibrin. Well, this fibrin, or this part of this platelet, allows it to contract. So it allows it to pull these two vessels closer together. So it actually has some contractile component to it. Actin and myosin, the same stuff we find in muscles, that are going to allow us to contract the walls of that blood vessel to pull things closer together to help that healing process. So thrombocytes are pretty fantastic in that regard. That ends our lesson for today, class. If you have any questions about the component of blood, please feel free to see me in class. Ask me any questions you'd like. Have a good day.